Evelina.
Hello, I'm Lisbeth.
Hey, my name is Ito.
Hello, my name is Evelyn.
Hi, I'm Amina.
Hello, I am Nina.
I am Isaac Tong.
To what extent is sexual harassment normalized in society?
I think yes, because it's normalized, because when a guy does it to a girl, they're assuming it's a compliment. And if she doesn't take it positively, then they're a jerk or they're stuck up.
Normalized? Yes. Why? Because people don't make a big deal out of it, people think it's normal. Like,
How do they think it's normal?
Well, you kind of just ignore it. You can tell the person, like, oh yeah, fuck off, and then you go about your day. You don't tell the whole world. Well, usually you don't.
According to Google, sexual harassment, typically of a woman in a workplace or other professional or social situation, involving the making of unwanted sexual advances or obscene remarks.
Sexual harassment to me is doing anything sexual to another person without their consent, from making lewd comments to rape.
Sexual harassment means strangers or somebody you know touch you inappropriately.
Sexual harassment is unwanted physical and verbal advancements.
And also stares that people give that make you feel uncomfortable because it makes you feel like they're looking at you not as a person but as an object. Based on the data we collected from 37 participants, 6 people confused sexual harassment with bullying, rape, and associated sexual harassment with only happening to women. 25 of them said they've been catcalled in the past and did not report it. One of the questions we asked was which group of people is most likely to commit sexual harassment. The majority said whites, Mexicans, males, the privileged, and people who are insecure about themselves. The reasons why they do this, according to the participants, is because they simply have the power to do it. We asked them if the media covered this topic effectively, and only 15 out of the 37 said it was. Some said it was annoying, and the cases spoken about become old news. The other 22 said they only hear cases of rape, not sexual harassment. We asked the question, do you think sexual harassment jokes are acceptable? And the responses shocked us. Only 6 out of the 37 said yes. They justified their answer by saying people take these jokes too serious. They're only jokes. While the rest said jokes on this issue are not acceptable, one person said there's not much we can do to stop them. This issue is taken too lightly in our society.
One time, well, not one time, but there was a couple times when I was walking to school, and I looked to like the corner of my eye, and there was this guy sitting in his car, and like he whipped out his thing and he started jerking it a couple times, and like I tried my best to get away from that. Another incident was, well, not an incident, but like I know this guy, he's my friend for a while, and he flashed me, but I wouldn't think of that as like a sexual harassment since I've known him, I know him. But if it's a stranger that does that, I would pronounce it as like sexual harassment.
Brooke Turner, the former Stanford University swimmer, sexually assaulted a 23-year-old woman behind a dumpster. According to the victim impact letter, the victim described blacking out at a fraternity party and waking up in a hospital with pine needles in her hair, scratches on the backs of her hands and elbows, and her underwear missing. The maximum sentence of the case could have been 14 years. According to CNN, a crime like this is supposed to have automatic sentence of at least 2 years. However, instead of considering the fact that the defendant was accused of 3 felonies and showed no accountability for his actions other than drinking. Judge Aaron Persky considered Turner's age, 0 criminal history, and disruption of his studies and athletic career when deciding his sentence. Consequently, instead of serving his time in prison, Brooke Turner was sentenced to 6 months in county jail. Interestingly, he has been released from jail after serving just 3 months for good behavior. Here's why. Because of the Criminal Justice Realignment Act of 2011, offenders in California sentenced to time in county jail are eligible to cut their sentences in half at an accelerated rate as long as they behave. For every 2 days of actual time served, the defendant receives 2 days of actual time credit and 2 days of conduct credit, for a total of 4 days of credit, or essentially half-time credit. Triggered by Brooke Turner's case, California lawmakers passed a bill suggesting for mandatory prison time for those convicted of committing sexual assaults upon victims who are unconscious and intoxicated. As a result of the Brooke Turner case, Judge Persky will no longer hear criminal cases after he transferred to the Civil Division by the end of September. Stanford undergraduate students will no longer be allowed to drink hard alcohol at on-campus parties. A big reason why we choose to cover the topic of sexual harassment is when the whole nation got exposed to the nasty behavior of now President-elect Donald Trump, from criticizing Miss Universe of 1996 Alicia Machado for her weight gain, to sitting next to businesswoman Jessica Leeds on a plane and sexually assaulting her. Trump has a lot of history sexually harassing multiple women, some of them even underage. Temple Taggart was a 21-year-old pageant when Trump kissed her on the lips, without consent, in a developed country where sexual harassment should be fought back hard against. A man that has no respect for women and commits horrible crimes got elected president, the person who represents every American.
I define sexual harassment as someone like doing something without like the consent of another person, or someone just acting out of impulse without confronting the person or asking them a question or asking them permission to do so. And in more than just like a sexual way. It doesn't have to be sexual. It can be in just physical way, or it can be like emotionally. I feel like all those are like in the same form as sexual harassment.
Getting catcalled, rude comments towards you, really perverted things being said to you in a very unwanted way.
Usually sometimes when I'm walking down the street or when I'm just, just hanging out like in public, there are guys that will say things to you when you walk by, even at school sometimes actually.
I want to say almost every other time I go to like the grocery store even. Yeah. Creepy guys stare at you. Been followed a few times.
Me and my friends used to go to this, like, it's kind of like a club, but not really, but it's called Convention. Mm-hmm. We always get catcalled and like mamacita and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But there was this one time where we were just like standing, listening to like the performers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like a guy came behind me and he was like drunk and he like grabbed me from the waist.
I usually call them out. Like call them out with like what are you doing? What the fuck is this? Or when I'm being catcalled, I'm just like, you need to stop. I don't know you. You gotta stop, or I flip them off, or cuss them out.
I didn't report it just because like I knew he was drunk, even though that's not like acceptable. But I just like turned around. I did get mad because like really like you're just gonna come and grab me. A lot of people don't like reporting it. Mm-hmm. One, maybe because they're like gonna be called like snitch or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think it's mostly because some people are scared. Yeah. And they just don't want to get involved in like with police.
I usually flip people off, tell them to fuck off, that kind of stuff. Give them dirty looks.
So I've had a couple instances. I'd go out to a couple of events and to the club sometimes, and guys will come out of nowhere and just grab my hips or just like slap my ass or do this or grab like my arm. Like I consider that like sexual harassment, and it's not really okay in my eyes.
Yes, at work, one of my coworkers, and yes, I called the guy out and he was escorted out of the store.
No, can't really pinpoint it. But I can pinpoint this last time that I was out with my sister and they catcalled her right in front of me. And they were like, "You're fucking hot." And it was like this older dude. She's 15, or she was 15 then. It was nasty.
Yeah, no offense, but men do it to women more often than women do it to men.
Males. I'll be surprised the day I see a woman sexually harassing someone.
So I'm Mexican, but even though I am, I feel like those are the guys that do it the most. You're just walking down the street and they'll like whistle at you like from their car. Mm-hmm. And like it's always like the older ones, you know.
Not really. The last one that I considered sexual harassment, but it was kind of like a joke, everyone played it off as a joke, was when that guy tried to kiss Kim Kardashian's butt. And I mean, it was all over the media, but it wasn't sexual. It wasn't like, it didn't say sexual harassment. It just said crazy guy kissed Kim Kardashian's butt, and it was made into a joke.
People have been raised both ethically and culturally in pretty much every race that I know of, by their parents or by their grandparents or by their guardians. You know, hey, it's okay, you're just being mean to her or him because you like him. You know, they normalized violence and I guess borderline sexual harassment at a young age.
I don't think it's a cultural issue. I think it's more ethnical, because not every Mexican does that. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I feel like it depends like how you were raised and like the environment.
We believe that sexual harassment is an issue that can be prevented, that it doesn't have to remain the social norm. While this sounds like a loaded responsibility to tackle, the fact that this issue can weigh so heavily on people's daily lives leaves us even less room to shy away from addressing and ensuring that there is an answer as to what can be done to resist sexual harassment. From the data we have collected during our project, and from observations on a global, national, and local level, we have come to the conclusion that the problem of sexual harassment can be countered most concretely through educational reform. Proper education demands that we revitalize the state of sexual education in our country. We must hold educational institutions to a higher standard and go beyond covering just abstinence or safe sex practices. Part of the reason why sexual harassment is such an underreported crime is because of this cultural reluctance that we have when it comes to openly discussing sex or anything of a sexual nature. One model we can follow when it comes to educational reform is what the Netherlands refers to as comprehensive sex education. Starting from an early age, children learn to talk about self-image, gender stereotypes, and even sexual orientation. By making sure that children are properly exposed to and educated on these concepts, we become much more able to have open conversations about sex and relationships.
In the last couple of weeks, while conducting research on sexual harassment, I came to the conclusion that this specific issue has no solution. Sexual harassment is a moral concept that society has established and continued to disregard. So the people that I turned to for support actually told me I was overreacting, and I was really disappointed.
Sexual harassment has no real solution because we can't force people to change. If a person wants to sexually harass another, they will simply do it. It's not a topic that is taken serious in our society because there is no real punishment for it. But if there was a punishment for it and someone was catcalling, they would simply say that it's their freedom of speech.
I honestly don't think there's a solution for sexual harassment, at least not right now. American society should be changed as a whole at the way we look at, treat, and portray women. Honestly, it's looking like this won't happen. In fact, the way we sexualize women is only getting worse. It's really dead end at this point.